Imagine having a team, right, that's not just passionate about their work, what they do at your company or for you as a real estate investor, but they also take ownership. They also exceed expectations. And let's say not only that, they also create vast achievements, not just for themselves, but for your company as well. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you several strategies that will convert that dream into reality. Let's dive into it. Now, if you're a real estate investor or a business owner, I'm sure you already know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you need to have a great team. Because once you have a great team in place, that provides you with some reprieve to take a step back, kick your feet up and relax and let them do the work that's needed, right? And to the point, they can potentially do the work better than you could as the founder, as the owner, as the CEO. So it's important to have a strong team. But how do you build it? What are some of those strategies? Well, let me share with you one strategy. One strategy is you got to, especially in the beginning when you're hiring someone, you have to understand what are their 5-year goals, what their 5-year goals are. So for instance, I just did an interview this week and one last week. I was looking for a operation manager assistant for my company, and so my recruiter found me 2 qualified candidates, and I asked them both the same question: what is your 5-year plan? Now, I want to know their 5-year plan, for one, to see if this person is interested in being loyal and committed to my company, right? So that plays a part, because that person says, oh, I want to be a real estate entrepreneur just like you, and I want to own 1,000 properties just like you. I want to have my own business just like you. Then I realized, okay, so they'll be, for lack of a better term, using me so they can learn the ropes of how I do my business or do my real estate investing affairs, so they can take what I've taught them to do their own thing, which is fine. You know, I have an abundance mentality. Sure, you can learn what you can from me, no worries, but as long as you're able to provide value, it's a win-win. But I prefer someone who's looking to stay with a company long-term. So that's one reason why I asked that question. The second reason is this: I want to know what their goals are to see if the company can help answer those goals for them. So if they say, yes, I would like to go from an assistant operations manager to not just being the operations manager, but actually being second in command, being the right-hand man, being the general manager, the COO, and seeing everything, every department, every person, every task, every project, every system, every process. I want it to be all under my domain. And if I hear that, I might say, wow, I like that. This person has a big vision. Oh man, it's aligned with what we want here in this company as well. I'm gonna do whatever is in my power to achieve it. So the first strategy is, when you're hiring a team member, again, before they sign off on the offer letter, right? In the interview process, you gotta know what their goals are, and then see if those goals line up with the company goals, for one, and if they do, then 2, how you can assist them in making that goal a reality, meaning you're creating an employee journey or roadmap, if you will, to help bridge that gap between where they are, let's say assistant operations manager, to where they wanna be, the COO. So then after you got that out the way, right, you know their goals, they're in alignment with the company's goals, and you create a roadmap to help them get from where they are to ultimately where they want to be within your company, then the next thing you want to do is start training them. And you want to provide them with structure, okay? Meaning you might want to provide them with systems, you want to provide them with SOPs, which are standard operating procedures, which are documented processes. You may also want to provide them with training manuals and or KPIs, key performance indicators. You want to make sure they have the structure needed to become successful. Assuming that this team member is competent for the job, has the capacity to do it, you want to provide them the structure. Now, depending on the job, you might be hiring them to improve the structure, and that's different, but you want to give them some type of framework to start off with, okay? You want to provide them with some type of foundation, period. Don't just bring someone in that's a blank slate and you have no idea, no clue of how to do it. Because if you do, and you just allow them to bring their experience, their background to the table, they may build it out and do a good job, but it may not be in alignment with what you want, okay? So that's why it's important to provide structure and clarity in regard to their role, so that way they can become a success. And you want to continuously monitor them to make sure they're on the right track. Because I actually ran into that issue fairly recently. Prior to hiring someone, I make them do a test drive. And I consider it like dating. You know, before I put a ring on it, let's test each other out for a week. I'll give you a small project that I would like you to do. You'll have 40 hours to complete it. And I want you to provide me with a scope of work, what needs to be done, the time frame, and so forth. And this is what I would like you to do. You can collaborate with this team member and that team member. So the reason for me for doing a small project, of course, is to test them, but also to see how they collaborate with other team members, to see if they're able to come up with a great scope of work of what needs to be done, and share with me some of the threats that may oppose, or some setbacks and so forth. Like just to see how they work in this position as the assistant operation manager. So I did this with a candidate, right? And he started collaborating with the team. And then one thing I do appreciate him doing, he had check-ins or milestones. So we just actually had a check-in today before the recording of this video. And as I'm going through, he completed 2 milestones. He's on milestone 3. As I'm going through it, the special project that I wanted him to do began to make a turn, began to deviate towards the path I didn't want to go down. And so I reminded him, it was all documented in regard to, hey, this is what I want you to do, and collaborate with his team member. But the team member he was collaborating thought he was talking about something else. And so he was persuaded by her to deviate and make this special project something different. And so being that it was his idea to have these checkpoints, we were able to catch this mistake, and I could give him clarity, again, give him a more foundation of how this should be, so that way he can fully build this out. All right, so that's why it's key and it's important to provide some structure and guidance as to where we want to go. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be perfect, the structure you provide, but at least be solid enough that someone can take it and run with it to make it better. All right, so let's say this team member, you know their goals, you train them, you're monitoring their work, you're inspecting what you're expecting, but and let's say they're getting the hang of the job, right? Where you can somewhat take a step back and let them go to work, which is great, right? So you have to be, quote unquote, on top of them all the time since they're new. You know, when they're new, you want to be on them like white on rice, right? But then after they've proven themselves, they're within KPI. That's what I mean by proving themselves. They're meeting the standards. You can relax a little bit. But what you want to do moving forward is be mindful of their career goals that they share with you from the jump in the beginning. And what you want to do is start providing them with additional training or resources, grooming them ultimately to that position that you want them to be in. Now, don't get me wrong, you can have a position posted and you want to have competition, so it might be other team members vying for that role, which is great. But in all fairness, if you had 2 or 3 team members who all want this one role, let's say it's the second in command role of the COO, then you want to make sure with all of them, you provide them with the training or resources so that way they can really learn, and when they all compete for that role, you'll get the top dog. And of course, you can entertain people outside the company, but just to keep things fair, you want to be able to groom everyone alike, assuming you're doing that, okay? Now, when I say groom, I mean, let's say second in command, sure, you might have some training or what have you that you may conduct or facilitate yourself with the mindset of, okay, this is what I really want as second command, but you might also have books that you may want them to read. You may have courses that you want them to go through. There might be a meetup, a seminar, or a webinar that you want them to attend. Now, if they do it or not, that's up to them. But you want to be able to provide them with the resource and just sit back to see if they actually do it. So that way, if you happen to hire somebody else, they can't get disgruntled because you said, hey, I provided you with this book, you didn't read it. I provided you with this training, you didn't take it. So this person actually took those resources that I provided them and they ran with it. So it's not fair for you to feel disgruntled because of that. They won't be disgruntled because in all fairness, they'll think, well, this guy was fair, this lady was fair with me, and I didn't do this because of personal reasons or whatever. I thought I wanted this job, I really didn't. I really couldn't master this one part, and I really wasn't persistent in trying to master this. So I can understand that she was the better person for the job, okay? But you want to do your part to be able to provide those resources to help groom them to becoming that position that they said they wanted to own in the first interview. Because you'll soon find out that for some, they realize they really don't want it. There's many team members in which let's say sales, for instance, they may start off as a salesperson and then they say, okay, I've been doing sales for a while, I want to get into management. Well, that's a totally different skill set. Especially as a sales manager, you got to know management. So that means it's all about the team and not about the individual's performance. But if you were great as a salesperson, in which you're always focusing on individual, being the best, killing it, get as much sales as possible. But now as a sales manager, how can I support the team? I need to listen to their calls. I need to provide them with feedback. I need to take notes. I need to monitor their key performance indicators. I need to provide them with additional training, additional resources, and so forth. It's a totally different mindset, totally different skill sets required. And so that person who's still, for lack of a better term, selfish, that I want to make as much money as possible on my own dime and off my own skill, not depending on these other salespeople and me having to build them up. They're too slow. I just want to focus on sales. So then you might have to have that come to Jesus moment yourself as a sales rep and say, you know what, maybe I don't want this role as a manager. Maybe I just want to just focus on seeing how I can do 10 sales a week to 13 sales a week. But as long as you help provide them with that guidance or resources, that team member will either A, consume it and get better, B, consume it, don't get better, or C, realize this is something that I really don't want. All right, the next step is this. Assuming you did all those things, you or whoever else is higher up on your team, any other executive, you have to make sure you have a great work culture. It's so important. So even if you happen to have the training in place, you're checking on their work and all this good stuff, but if the culture is not conducive to that team member, then it may not stay for long. So it's important that you maintain a healthy culture. For one, have it documented. And as assuming you're the CEO, whether it's of your real estate empire or business, you want to be the CRO, the Chief Repeating Officer. You want to continuously repeat your core values, the culture, to your team constantly to the point they hear it like it's a broken record. But it's important because that repetition will cause them to really get into the subconscious mind to the point they say, you know what, I need to do this. This is part of the core values. So it's important that you have the core values documented and repeated, and that team member actually vibes with it, so that way they can stay with you for long haul. All right, and the final step is this. You got to have rewards and incentives in place, okay? So even if you have a great team culture, they see the career path, you're giving them help, resources, training, and all that good stuff, you can try to reward people, and you want to incentivize your team based upon the performance you want to see, okay? So if you want to see greater sales, then you might want to incentivize your team, your sales team, to say, okay, whoever does the most sales this month gets a 1% bonus of the gross amount of cash collected in the company. Or whoever sells the first product this week, they get a new watch. Whatever incentives that you can afford. Okay, if you cannot afford to buy someone a new watch, then I don't recommend for you to have that, of course. Whatever is doable within your company. And it don't have to be just sales related, right? It can be service. Whoever has a happiness score of 100 gets a $100 bonus, or I'll treat you out to dinner, you and your spouse. Or you get 1 day off paid. Whatever that team member values, you want to, one, make sure that you create incentives based upon the performance you want to see, but two, reward them, that team member, based upon their love language. All right, so if you haven't done this with your team, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I think that's his name. I have it on my Audible account. I know you see a full library here, but I have even more on my Audible account. And in that book, he discusses the 5 ways that people like to be loved, right? Or express love. They like love to be expressed towards them 5 ways, or if that makes sense. Acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gifts. So when you hire that team member, you want to understand their personality by having them take personality tests and the 5 love languages test. And so let's say you have someone who values highly quality time. So let's say if they hit that incentive, they got a happiness score of 100 where customer service is concerned, then being that they love quality time, hey, you get 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever you can afford, remember? You get 4 additional hours or 8 additional hours of vacation time. So you can spend quality time with your family, right? Or if it's gifts, you can say, okay, well, here's a monetary bonus, or B, here are some gift cards to an amusement park or to the movies. That's a gift, right? If it's physical touch, okay, I've scheduled an appointment with you and a masseuse so you can get a free massage on the company. Whatever acts of service, okay, I'll have a house cleaner come here and clean your house, is on the company. So I just listed many different ways of how to do that. That could be physical touch, acts of service, or whatever. Understand their personality type and reward them based upon how they'd like to be loved. And making sure that those rewards, those incentives, that is documented and it's transparent, they can see it on the dashboard, and make sure it lines up with the company's performance goals. And last, you want to make sure that you empower your team and provide them with autonomy. Now, this is the goal. You want to have alignment and autonomy, meaning, let's start with alignment first. You might want to say, hey guys, we're over here on this side of the land. Our goal is to get to this side of the land, the promised land. But this gap in between where we are and where we want to go, there's a river. Now, our goal is to get to this side. That's alignment. We're all aligned on the same goal. The next is autonomy. But you have the power, the control, the autonomy to figure out how we're going to get there. Now, I want to make sure we get there in, let's say, the cheapest way possible, or the fastest way possible, or the safest way possible, or whatever other requirements that are needed. You want to make sure you put that in the alignment, but give them the ability to come up with a solution. And they may decide, let's build a bridge and we can walk over. But if that doesn't line up with the goal of the cheapest way, you might say, oh, that'd be too expensive. You know what? The best way to do it for the cheapest way is for us to swim over, all right? Or something along those lines. Or you might say, okay, I want the fastest. Okay, the fastest way will be get a jet ski. Or the fastest way may be to get a speedboat. Or a jet boat, jet ski, whatever these things are called, right? Or the other option will be that you want them to come up and then you will review it and say, okay, that was a decent idea. That one doesn't really line up with our goals, but this one is really good. So once the team member gets ingratiated into your company, get comfortable, they vibe with the core values, they're incentivized, they have the training, start giving them more and more autonomy and start becoming more and more clear on the alignment. Congratulations, you have now acquired valuable knowledge of how to motivate and empower your team so they can be a strong team that provides you with freedom of time, peace of mind, and go on to greener pastures. However, it's important to understand how to have better business success outside of the fact of having a great team in place. So go ahead and schedule your personalized session with me by clicking the link below in the description. And I look forward to having that consult with you to help get you, your business, and your real estate, if you choose to go that route, to the next level. As always, guys, this is to your success. Continue to earn passively, live passionately, and make sure you get that massive income so it can fund your passive income. Take care. Peace.